What is up, guys? Evan Aldo here. I am in Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia right now. I'm up high, 40-something floor, 30-something floor, whatever, on the rooftop, getting a nice rainstorm, which is pretty cool. Definitely not the best background right here. I would take you outside, but I'm just gonna get sopping wet with that. But anyway, guys, wow. I mean, I've been in Asia for close to a month now. It has been a really fantastic experience. You really look at a lot of the advancements a lot of these countries are making, especially Malaysia, especially Thailand, a lot of them. And it's wild. And you see, when you hear Ray Dalio talk about changing world orders and all of that, and how the East is getting more advanced and all that type of stuff, you see it. You definitely see it when you come to these countries. And it's been an amazing experience so far. I mean, I'm probably only gonna spend another, week or so in Asia, maybe headed back to Miami relatively soon. But man, I don't wanna leave. Part of me really doesn't wanna leave. And it's been, it's just been great. And, culturally, there's a lot of things too. I'm not saying everything. Obviously, some of these countries, there's a lot to, there's issues like everywhere else, but it's a lot of things are nice. A lot of things are nice. I met a lot of great people on this trip and all that. So it's been really that that incredible experience. And you look at the cost of living, just so especially for someone with a Western salary, just so much more economical, so much more economical, where you could, how far your money gets you. And I mean, Kuala Lumpur, this is a clean city. This is a great city. Yeah, you would think you're in somewhere in Europe or the US. Very, 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 high standards of living, I would say. There's designer brands at the malls. There's a lot of, it's a really modern city, But anyway, I wanted to talk about a little bit to you guys, what's going on with Bitcoin kind of, at the moment. And man, when I look at some of the time frames, like the 4-day, it shows continuation, at least, or at least coming back up to the all-time highs for Bitcoin, potentially that 78K area. It shows that. Certain other time frames, maybe if we get a trigger wave to the downside on the daily, that would be the bearish case. Funding fees are really high, so you're eventually gonna scare away, or you gotta clean out everybody going degenerate long. And we've seen that before in the history of Bitcoin, and it took a while to clean it out. Back in, the first time was around May of 21. You had to come down 50% about, or maybe a little bit more, to really clean it out. The second time was obviously November of 21. You had to come down 75% to really clean that out. So how much do you have to come out to really clean this out? I think you're due for that 30% correction at some point. I just don't know when you're gonna see it. It's either gonna be now, where, our previous high was the high, or, it's gonna be, it's gonna be where we come up probably a little bit more. I don't think, maybe 78, maybe 80K, who knows? Then you'll probably see that, at least that 30% correction. I don't have the calculator in front of me. I don't know how much that would bring us down to, but I do think that 50K, high 40Ks, low 50Ks is what we'll see at some point here. So yeah, but on the bright side, as I've been talking to you guys a lot, I do think altcoins will generally hold up pretty well against Bitcoin. If even like the real altcoin bears, like even they think a lot of the pairs will bottom out against Bitcoin by time the Fed kind of pivots, which most likely will be in June. So I mean, at this point, are you going to sell your altcoins, convert them to Bitcoin? I mean, at this point, you're so close to that area. Not financial advice, but I'm going to stay the course with the altcoins that I started accumulating around October, right at the bottom for some of them, which was a really good place. Obviously, the altcoins are going to be riskier. We haven't seen much happen. We really haven't seen too much happen with altcoins, but we've definitely seen a little bit happen with altcoins. NFTs, we really have not seen much happen at all, aside from maybe some new ones that got some, attention, like the creeps or the Campi Pandas. a few of those, Pudgy Penguins had some attention, but the OG, like Hugo Labs, obviously abysmal, pretty abysmal. I mean, holding up not terrible on its USD evaluation, but compared to Ethereum, absolutely abysmal. So I think, you're gonna see that show some strength. And when I look at the ape coin, which should follow Yuga Labs, should follow Mutant Apes, should follow Bored Apes, I do think that could be bottoming out against Ethereum, and I think it could be bottoming out against Bitcoin as well, or already has. I think that bottom was a month or two ago or something. So I do think there's a strong argument to be made that we will see that continue. So you're going to get that correction, I think. You're going to get at least that 30% correction for Bitcoin in the coming months, I think. Probably by July, August, the latest. And then most likely into the election, the second half of this year is going to be really bullish. And I think that, alts are going to do well for the second half of this year, probably into sometime next year, maybe even early 26, we could peak out. I remember in 2018, the peak was in January 2018. So it is possible this could be a longer kind of cycle. In terms of, people talking about it, social risk, all that, we have a little bit, but not too crazy. There's a lot more that we could, that we could definitely take here. So, I mean, the biggest concern, I think, funding fees have been atrocious, very high. People going to general long, that's a big concern. Charts are kind of neutral, I'd say. I haven't quite ever seen things historically exactly like this, so it's kind of hard, but I would kind of go on the bull case. I would kind of go on the bull case, and at least in the short term, we'll see what happens. You just got to be patient with it. That's a big thing. I mean, obviously some people, a lot of new traders or whatever who did really well just longing every little dip on the way up are now getting punished a little bit more. That's part of when the market kind of changes, the environment in the market changes, which it does, probably every few months, depending. So we're in that area, but there's still a lot of good opportunities, I think. There's still a lot of good opportunities. I mean, the plan remains the same. I'm DCAing into alts for a couple more weeks here. Pre-halving, that's the other thing I hadn't mentioned. Pre-halving would be, until mid to late April, I'll be DCAing, so it's a few more weeks. After that, I'm probably not going to buy any more crypto unless we see that, big drop down for a lot of them. Maybe in the summer, I'll put some more in the summer. But, as of now, I don't really have too many more plans to buy much more after April. Going to hold at least a year for long-term capital gains. So yeah. And I do think, altcoins, like I said, we do see that 30 to 50% correction for Bitcoin, into the summer in the coming months. Some altcoins may only correct, 40%, maybe a little less. They may hold up well against Bitcoin. So I know 40% is a lot, but not the worst thing in the world when you look at altcoins, not the worst thing in the world. So that's ultimately what I'm looking at, right there. That's what I'm thinking about. And I think I touched on it before, but about the Fed pivot, I mean, I think regardless of, I think Fed pivot, I think is no matter what going to be somewhat bullish for alts. I think as more money enters the system, more money is going to go into alts, which is why I think they'll, really start to hold up well, against Bitcoin, and it'll get more solidified that we'll see that cut in June. So that's going to be the good thing that we want to kind of focus on there. So in terms of other kind of news, in terms of what's happening, I mean, American economy, when you look at S&P 500 versus M2, still pretty strong. I think we got a few years of that generally staying strong. I think Bitcoin's going to hold the general 4-year cycle probably until the end of the decade. I think this decade is generally still going to be pretty good, for the S&P 500, for risk on assets as well. And, I think it's similar to the 80s and 90s and similar to the 1950s and 1960s, that 20-year area, assuming we're starting in around when Bitcoin first came out, 2011. Same with the S&P 500, that 20-year area. So, late 2020s, early 2030s is theoretically until we see a major kind of environment change in the structure of all this, from a generally bullish market, for S&P 500, for risk on assets, NASDAQ, all that, Bitcoin, to maybe a bad decade in the 2030s if we do see history repeated like that. But that's, that's a little bit to be seen. It's a little bit ahead of ourselves. So that's what I'm looking at right now. Excited about this market in terms of trading. Like I mentioned, you're going to see that pullback at some point to clean out these degenerate longs. I think you really do have to come down at least 30% at some point, which Bitcoin is known for. Will it happen before we hit 78K? I don't know. That's the tough thing here. When I look at the charts, when I look at everything, I think there's a strong case to be made coming up higher. But if we do roll over on that daily, coming in, that trigger wave to the downside, that could throw a wrench into things. So we do got to pay attention to that. We got to pay attention to that. Anyway, guys, that's all I got right now. I want you to smash the like button. Really appreciate you guys. Subscribe to the channel and have a good one. Goodbye.